to our keynote speaker. He's Luke Stokes, one of the founders of FoxyCart, and he's going to talk about turning your code into a company. So Luke?
Thanks so much. It's really an honor to be here. So before we get started, a question I have for you guys is how many of you like the idea of being your own boss, running your own company, taking your product, taking your code, and actually turning it into something that brings in recurring revenue? And so let me see those hands up. Oh, that's awesome. Sweet. So that's more than half the crowd. That's really cool. I know, and not to knock on those people that love consulting work, have an amazing boss, love their job. This is not at all saying that that's not valid in any way. It's cool to know that there are people here that are going to be interested in what we're going to be talking about. Because the point of this talk is to tell the backstory. We've been building FoxyCart for 7 years, and a lot of what I hear in the marketplace today is kind of this wannapreneur cry. It's like a lot of people listening to podcasts, reading a bunch of books, and they're all excited, and they think, man, I'm going to be an overnight success, and no one's telling them the real story. No one is telling them the hard story of what it takes to actually build a business, build a company, to serve your customers. So that's kind of what this talk is about. It's the parts they don't tell you about building a company. And specifically for developers, taking their code, building a company. Just 1 second. There we go. So this is kind of the reason for this talk, is my family. I've got 3 amazing kids. That's my wife, Corrine. I live in Nashville, and they are the reason why I wanted to build this company. My very first goal with FoxyCart was to enable my wife to be able to stay at home and raise our kids. And that was kind of the first goal. If I could cover her salary, we'd be in an awesome place. And I'm happy to say we did that, and then some. The company is FoxyCart. It's an e-commerce shopping cart system. We started in 2007, myself and Brett Florio. We actually started tinkering with the idea in 2005 and 2006. And it was really a company to serve his clients. He was running a web dev shop, hated all the other e-commerce solutions out there. And that's kind of where it started. It was just this idea that, hey, can we do this better? We wanted to make it easy for developers to accept payment for any product on any website, any device, any customer. That was our idea. And we currently serve over 2,000 recurring revenue customers that are paying us. And we've processed over $500 million since we started. Now, I put that on there not to brag. It's just to say that this started from nothing. And now we have something, and that's kind of what this story is going to be about. And that's not the focus of this talk. The focus is, how the heck did we get there? How hard was it? Because that's a story I think, again, people are not telling enough. So as we're telling this story, there are a lot of hands that raised, and that's awesome. And I'm hoping, as we go through this, that you can picture yourself in the story. Think about what you're working on right now. Think about where you are in the process. Think about, can you inject yourself into the story? Yeah, that's where I'm at right now, or that's what I'm struggling with, or that's what I'm thinking through or dealing with. And I think you'll get a lot more out of the story. You'll get a lot more out of the talk if you can think about injecting yourself into the process. So in the beginning, it was very, very hard. As I said, Brett had his own web company, and he was using all kinds of different platforms, and he was just really frustrated with the core concept when it comes to e-commerce. How many of you guys have done e-commerce before? So yeah, wow, a lot of hands up. And it's funny, we sponsor a lot of different conferences, local, regional conferences, things like that, and often we say, you're doing e-commerce, what are you using? And they're like, oh, yes. It's like, okay, yeah, I know that feeling. I had that 7 years ago. That's why we started this. And so he was using a lot of different solutions. Sometimes he'd have one client on 3 different e-commerce solutions, the same client. He'd be doing downloadable products here, be doing subscriptions over here, and be doing open form conference registrations over here. It was just a nightmare for him. He was super frustrated with it. Even just managing the logins was a big pain in the butt. So he would complain all the time. He'd say, oh man, I hate using this one. I hate using this one. Oh, I'm so frustrated with this one. And he'd literally looked at over 100 different shopping carts. And I was like, well, dude, how hard could it be? I've done e-commerce before. I could probably build you one over a weekend, right? And so I've been working on that weekend project ever since. And it's going along, But the real thing that we found that I think was so important is that there was a real need in the marketplace. Brett, my business partner, he was running web dev, and he was losing money on e-commerce sites. He'd have to build a website here, and then they'd come and say, oh, now we want to sell our products online too. And then he'd have to build another website. a complete content management system enabled e-commerce solution. It would be really, really frustrating. And he's like, man, this is difficult. Why is this so hard? I've already designed my website. And back then, 2005, we're talking font tags and, no CSS. I mean, just really horrible template languages that you had to work in these e-commerce solutions. So he said, hey, we got to take a different approach. I want to add e-commerce to my existing website. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So again, it was really difficult. My schedule, it was tough. I would wake up before 7. I'd go to my day job. I'd drive to work a full day. I get there around 8:30, work till 5:30. Sometimes I'd work during lunchtime on FoxyCart. I'd get home around 6 or so, hang out with the family from 6 to 8:30, eat dinner. At that time, put my son to bed, and then I would work. And I would work from 8:30 until 12:30, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and I would do that day after day after day. Come Saturday, sometimes I'd work a 10-hour day on Saturday. And the only way I could do that is because my wife was an amazing support. She would be there for me, and she would take care of everything. She would be, all the laundry, all the meal planning, taking care of the house. It was like whatever she could do to enable me to sit and work is what she did, and that's how we did it. And there would be times when I'd be sitting there and I just worked a full day. I'm really tired. It's 1:30 in the morning. I want to go to bed, but there's a bug I still need to fix. And I'm sitting there and I go, I got one sign up and they paid me 15 bucks. What am I doing with my life? This is such a waste. Like I could be making $100 an hour doing consulting. Like this just doesn't make sense. And that idea of just thinking, man, am I doing something wrong? Why is this so hard? All the other stories I hear of people being successful, it doesn't seem like it's this hard for them. But it actually usually really is. And my wife and my business partner are continually encouraging me to talk me off that ledge saying, hey, you're thinking long term, you're thinking long term. So I did that not for a week, not for a month, not 3 months, not 9 months, not even a year. It was 4 years working full time and building this company on the side. And that, again, is the part of this story that I want to emphasize. That's the part of this story I think people aren't hearing enough. They watch Shark Tank and they think, oh man, it's just so easy. You just build something and show up on TV and get a bunch of funding or whatever, and you're just awesome overnight success. And it's like, well, usually not, actually. Usually, even those people that feel like they came out of nowhere, sometimes you dig a little deeper and they have like a 10-year backstory of like 4 pivots prior to that. This is the story. And now it's been 3 years now. Actually, this past September is my anniversary, 3 years working full-time on FoxyCart. And again, I'm not going to go into the details of how amazing it is to work for yourself, because probably most of you can realize it's pretty awesome. The level of autonomy you have. I work from home. You saw that picture at the beach. We spent 10 weeks in Costa Rica the first year with that. I was working for myself, and I worked 40-hour weeks while in Costa Rica surfing my head off. It was awesome. I mean, working for yourself is fantastic. It is worth it. But it's really hard. So again, on a practical level, there really isn't such a thing as overnight success. A lot of this stuff is worth it, but it's very hard, and it takes work. It takes effort. And getting funded is a great thing. I mean, I have some friends who recently got funded, and I mean, that's awesome. But it's not necessarily a destination, and this is an important point. Getting funded means someone believes in you, that you're eventually going to serve a customer, that you're actually going to provide value to someone, that they're going to be excited about using your product or your service. If your whole idea is just to IPO or just get funded, oftentimes I've seen those things just kind of fold and collapse, and then nobody's getting served. The idea being, you should be serving a customer. You should be serving somebody, providing value to someone's life. Actually, a human being should benefit by the work that we do. As programmers, when we code something, if it just benefits another computer, that's irrelevant, because eventually, on the other end of that, there has to be a human being that says, man, my life is better. This is helping me out. So the work we do has to benefit somebody. And also, I want to encourage people to build businesses, not just startups. There's a lot of kind of startup craze, and some of that I think in our industry is a little bit crazy. It's a little bit out there. It's almost like people forgot what business is. Business is this ancient, crazy concept of profit, which is revenue minus expenses. If it's not a positive number, you might have a hobby, and that's okay. Like my business partner, he would get so aggravated at me because early days I'd be like, man, FoxyCart, our hobby we're doing. And he's like, dude, it's not a hobby. It's not a hobby. We'd have like 20 customers or something, and I'd be like, I'm not full-time. You're not full-time. This is still a hobby. We're still doing this on the side. And he'd be like, we're going to take over the world of e-commerce. And he's right, but it's going to take a while, But again, that idea of building a business, not just a startup, is important. It's kind of summarized well by this tweet. I saw this a while ago and I thought it was awesome. 5 million people, Silicon Valley, walk into a bar, no one buys anything. Bar is declared a roaring success and files for IPO. So one of the things that, as it relates to getting funding or just having money to spend right off the bat, I feel you can potentially lose something, and that's that motivation. What's going to keep you going at 2 in the morning? And for me, bootstrapping was so important for how we built our company, because again, when I'd be sitting there at 1:30 in the morning on my lounge chair, sitting there working on some code, and I'm like, man, I am dead tired. I got to get up at 6 something in the morning to get to work tomorrow. But I know that if I can get this bug fixed for this person who has a name, their business can go live tomorrow. Their e-commerce solution is going to go forward if I can add this feature. They need that one feature. They're ready to go. That to me was incredibly motivating, that there's a real person. It's not just, yeah, they're going to pay me 15 bucks. Like, obviously, I'm not working my butt off for just that 15 bucks. It's for that person, you know, and that to me is an incredible motivation. And when you build your software with that kind of motivation from the beginning, it goes forward for the rest of the life of the company, in my opinion. And so just having the money, it's easy to think, oh, okay, we're just working along. But when there's a real person, you actually get that product out in front of someone and say, hey, this can benefit you. And they say, man, that's awesome. That's incredible motivation. That's gets you going forward. It's got to be about the customer. You know, it's fixing those bugs, adding those features. That's what kept me going late at night when I was just like, oh man, I'm so tired. And also it comes down to, what do you believe? You know, we don't just do e-commerce just because the solutions were frustrating, but it was the core underlying belief. What bothered us about the solutions being frustrating? Why is e-commerce so important? We believe that voluntary commerce technology makes the world a better place, that mutually beneficial individual exchange of value improves lives. That if I have something of value, you have something of value, and we exchange that and we're both better off, man, that's an awesome thing. And that should be easy to do. And not only that, a lot of the solutions out there, unfortunately, they focus on the merchant. They say, well, you're selling something, here's our wonderful little tool, you know, plug it in and you're good to go. But as many of you developers probably know, doing e-commerce, not built for the developer. So we get in there, and of course 6 months into any e-commerce project turns into a custom e-commerce project, and they're like, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. Exactly, table flip, you know. It's just like, it's super frustrating. You're like, man, I just want it to do this. I need to customize it in just this way. Why weren't they thinking about the developer when they built this? That was, again, our frustration. Is we feel developers are the ones that are making this happen. So developers should have awesome tools in order to do that. They need those tools to be able to serve their customers and also serve the merchant as well. Because oftentimes the client is like, well, wait, I bought this thing, it should work. Why doesn't it work? This should be easy. Why is this so hard? And we're kind of sitting there going, well, you picked the solution and you told me to implement it, so kind of sorry. But so we figured, hey, we want to give developers more control to be able to do e-commerce there. And that was, again, what we believed, and what we believed led us to building a company and building a product that mattered to us, so we could stay motivated to keep improving it. Now, one of the reasons I think developers don't get their code out there in front of people, you know, they kind of keep it in their little silo and they keep tinkering on it and like, wow, I'm not going to put it up on GitHub yet, or I'm not going to do that yet, is we're insecure in a lot of ways. And this is a theme that I've seen over and over again. You know, a joke that I like is, how do you know you're talking to an outgoing developer? Well, he's looking at your shoes instead of his own when he's talking to you. You know, it's like, we're just known as not being very outgoing people, not being very good at communication, and just being a little bit insecure about our software. And I love this quote from Thomas Edison: if I find 10,000 ways something won't work, I haven't failed. I'm not discouraged, because every wrong attempt discarded is another step forward. It's a step toward improvement. And so this is like my only viral tweet I've ever had, so I'm kind of proud of it, so I got to put it up on the slide. But it kind of gives that point well. As a programmer, it's easy to be paralyzed with lack of confidence in your skills. Instead, solve problems, add value, keep learning. And that's why we're all here, right? That's why we're coming to these different conferences. We want to learn, we want to get better, we want to know what the industry is doing now, we want to improve so we can better serve people. And that's what it's all about. So this next slide is kind of embarrassing, but this is my example of this. So this is 6 years ago. FoxyCart has dramatically changed since then. It's a great example of how, yeah, the code might be bad, I might be insecure about it, but if it's going to meet needs, I'm going to do it. So we had a customer who said, okay, we need subscriptions, and also FoxyCart needed subscriptions. So this is version, I think, 0.4.0. we had to support subscriptions. And you know, we have to start billing our customers ourselves. So I'm like, okay, how do we do this? Well, I've got this checkout.php page that I post values to, and it processes transactions. What if I create a table of subscriptions, put some bunch of data in there, loop over the table, stuff the post array, and just re-include the file? Would that even work? And it did. I was like, okay, we have subscriptions. Again, this is old code, but it's an example. And I'm putting it out there, our insecure code, just putting it out there to say, hey, you know, if it meets a real need and serves someone well, let's move forward. You know, we've launched 10-something versions of FoxyCart since then. And I had the luxury of not being an open source solution, so people couldn't make fun of my bad code. but this is an example of if we can get something out there, get some feedback of the product we're actually building to serve someone quickly, then we can benefit somebody. A tool we've used that has really helped with that is user voice. If you guys haven't checked that out, for those of you that are interested in launching something, I'd highly recommend it. What it allows you to do, if you go to request.foxycart.com, you can check it out right now. But it allows you to kind of put that code out there, put those ideas out there and say, hey, you know, what do you guys need? And you start talking to your community, engage your customers directly. And what's really cool is somebody comes up and says, oh, I really need this feature. I really need you guys to build this. And we'll go, well, okay, but why don't you just put it on the request board and then get the community to get excited about it and get them to vote for it. So they go sometimes with their little cottage feature and they go and they bring it there. And then they look at something else and say, oh, actually, I really want that. Oh, actually, that would be really cool. So instead of you being the bad guy, you know, the sole developer who's just not getting stuff done quick enough and not, you know, responding to their feature requests, instead they go, oh, wow, you're like serving the community. And oh, I see all the other features that you implemented. And yeah, that feature is like actually way more important than the feature I wanted. Yeah, keep going. You guys are awesome. Keep building stuff. So it's just a really helpful thing to take that pressure off yourself so you're not constantly responding to every single request going, oh, yeah, I can do that. And oh, I can do that too. And I can do that in a week when you really know it's going to take a month. But you think it'll take a week. You know, this kind of things help you go, okay, I'm going to let the community decide what's most important. I'm also going to be thinking about what I know about the future of the industry, of the software, building out the things that are important as well for long term, which is a helpful way to take that and not feel so frustrated or concerned about that you're not meeting the needs of the people you're serving. So one of the things that a lot of people talk about is just being super passionate. You know, you got to be passionate about it, and that's important. It's critically important. But it's not just enough. That's not enough. One of the things, I tell that story of late at night, being really tired, and I can think of actually one night in particular, there were many, but I can think of one that stands out where my wife happened to be up that night as well. And it's probably 1:30 in the morning, and I'm just like, what am I doing with my life? This is so hard. This is so difficult. And she literally talked me off the ledge and said, you're thinking long term. You're building this company for our family. You're working hard, and I so appreciate that. And I want you to know that it matters. And that was so encouraging to me, to know that my business partner would often do the same thing for me, and sometimes I would do the same for him, where we would just encourage each other. You know, he'd say, we're so close to 1,000 customers. I'm like, dude, we have 50. We're not close to 1,000. We're not anywhere near 1,000. But we would encourage each other. We'd talk each other off the ledge. We'd remind each other that this is a long-term play, that all that stuff we hear on TechCrunch and all these other different news outlets where they say, hey, these guys were just an overnight success, that sometimes you have to tune that out a little bit. Start talking to other entrepreneurs that you know. Start talking to people, get the real story and say, wow, that took you 10 years to build that company? It took you 15 years? It took you how long? A lot of times, you know, we think about Apple being this, you know, huge company that just didn't take that long. Well, I remember watching videos of Steve Jobs from like when I was born. You know, they've been doing this for a long time. And these stories, they take a while to build. And that motivation too of having those paying customers. Getting that product and service out there, if you're meeting a real need in the marketplace, if you are somebody that needs this solution, there's probably other people like you. And getting it out in front of them, getting something that they've actually be willing to pay for, is really important. It's super motivating. This is a quote that I love by Rabbi Daniel Lapin. He says, the dollar bill is a certificate of appreciation. And when you're able to do something like that, when you're able to build something that somebody's willing to pay you for, and you think about that dollar bill, what that means, what that symbolizes. This is the time away from their family. This is their like giving up their autonomy. This is them saying, hey, I worked hard for this. I want to give it to you because it's more of a benefit to have the service that you provide than this piece of paper or this dollar bill or this electronic fund transfer, whatever it might be. But it's a great encouragement too, that if you can get 1 paying customer or 5 paying customers or 10 paying customers, then people believe in what you're doing. It's valuable to them. Get it out there. Get it in front of people. Building a business is hard. And most people, again, don't tell that story. And if some of this sounds repetitive, I'm sorry, but I think we all need to hear it. Is that what's going to get you motivated at 2 a.m.? When you're sitting there with your buddies, or your buddies call you and say, hey, let's go to a movie tonight. And you're like, yeah, I was going to work on my project. I know I've got that bug to fix. And again, if you've got that customer waiting for you, it's going to enable you to say, hey, you know what, guys, I'll catch it later. I'm actually got some work I got to do tonight. You know, having that motivation. No one's going to be sitting there celebrating you. There's going to be no blog posts about that moment at 2 a.m. There's going to be no interviews. There's going to be no exciting moments. But I mean, to get an email from Eli to come to ask and speak at the first PHP World, that was an amazing thing for me. And I sat back thinking, what an incredible honor. And that's because of these moments at 2 a.m. where I said, man, I'm going to keep building this thing. I'm going to keep serving people because this matters. People need better tools. Again, back to what I believed. And it's hard, and there's no glamour there. You know, I've got a group of entrepreneurs that I meet with every Wednesday morning. It's about 12 guys, and it's an amazing group. It's called the Young Eagles Group, and it's basically like a mastermind thing if you're familiar with that. And what's amazing about the entrepreneurs in that story, a lot of them very more successful than I am financially, I mean, doing incredible things. Each one of them has a story where they worked harder than everyone else they knew. They just worked harder. They put their head down, and they worked hard, and they worked hard, and they worked hard. So I want to tell you, if you're working hard right now and you're frustrated because you're not seeing the results you expect, that's normal. That's okay. And as long as you have those people paying you a certificate of appreciation, you've got those people that believe in what you're doing, keep going. It may take some time, and that's okay. Because a lot of the success stories involve working really hard, putting in that effort, putting in that time that honestly few people are willing to put in. And again, I think this story needs to be told. I think as a community, we're kind of doing a disservice by just hyping the big success stories, hyping the big, oh, X company got X millions of dollars, and this is doing this, and this is doing that, and without telling the backstory. Say, how did they get there? What effort did they have to put in? How does that relate to my story? What effort am I going to have to be put in, to make this thing happen? And I've mentioned this briefly, but we got to be solving real problems. If there's something that would help us, it's probably going to help other people as well. There's not, if you're not going to work on something you're passionate about, then what's the point? If very few people I think are going to build the next Twitter. Honestly, it's just probably not going to happen. There's going to be some outliers. There's going to be some examples of that. But really, what is the real problem that people are solving today that we could actually, or that people have today that we could actually solve? I think in this room, there's incredible ideas. There are companies that can be launched right here, or that have already been launched and are being slowly built over time that can meet real needs, solve real problems. Not just think about, oh, we need another photo sharing app. Well, probably not. There's plenty of those. But what about an app that can help your local business around the corner and all the other businesses like it? There's some really cool things that we can be thinking about, not just thinking about the big success story, but serving other people. So how we got here, it was just slow and steady. Just a little bit, by little bit, by little bit. My old boss, I used to work for a radio personality. He teaches people to get out of debt and teaches entrepreneurs. And he always talks about the tortoise and the hare. When he went broke and then made his money back, and he talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, millionaires and decamillionaires and even billionaires. And he said a theme that he would hear from them over and over again is this children's story, the tortoise and the hare. And every time they'd read it, the tortoise always wins, And my business partner would get frustrated. He'd say, well, the tortoise won because the hare was stupid. Well, maybe, but also the tortoise was consistent. It was consistently moving forward, consistently moving forward, consistently moving forward. Also, it's important to grow the team with an amazing group of people. We've got a remote team at FoxyCart, about 8 different guys, and they're all remote. We've got a guy in Russia and Pakistan, Australia. We have different people here in the US. And we've built that team through relationships. A couple of the guys I can think of on the team, they were just amazing in our support forums. They were just there helping the community, doing incredible things. And we said, hey, that's awesome. Can you do that more and we'll pay you? And that's kind of how we grew that relationship. And the people we brought on the team, they actually care about our customers the same way we do. They really care, like, hey, this person right here needs this thing fixed, or this person right here needs this feature. So when are we going to be able to get that done? And what's really cool too, most of them do e-commerce on the side. So they're actually serving their own clients. They're building their own websites and they're using FoxyCart to do that. So they get their real world experience. So when they're on the phone with a customer and they're like, yeah, actually, I'm trying to figure this out. And he's like, well, here's what I do with my websites, with my clients. And here's how I solve that problem. And here's how FoxyCart fits perfectly for that. And they're like, oh man, I'm actually talking to somebody who knows what they're talking about. How awesome is that? So we're pretty proud of that everybody on the team is a developer. We have a very developer-centric culture. And that works for us because we're a product for developers. And then again, as we already talked about, just shipping something useful. My first customer, actually, other than Brett, who was doing it for his side clients, was my good friend Nick. And in Nashville, he has this thing called Modern Nash, where they drive from Nashville down to IKEA in Georgia, and they pick up your IKEA stuff, your order, and then they bring it back. Well, the first version of FoxyCart was so buggy that he was using it, and he had to go back to manual invoicing. And he did that for a month, just using manual invoicing, and then he came back to FoxyCart later. But I got so much great feedback, and it was a good friend of mine. So he was like, hey, no worries, I fully understand. But the important part was getting it out there, shipping it. And I think that is really important. You hear that a lot from people like Seth Godin and a lot of other speakers that say, hey, ship it, get it out there. Get it in front of real people and see if it's meeting their needs at all. See what that feedback is going to be. And then also, as I mentioned too, having a developer culture, we don't really have a sales and marketing team. We're not pushing an idea before we actually have the product. Focusing on the product is so important. Being able to think through, like, what are we trying to do here? Whose problems are we solving? What are they going to need next? Always improving the product. And we struggle with this sometimes. We think, man, if we just had a business development person, if we just had a marketing team, a lot of people probably never heard of FoxyCart. And sometimes I'm at a vendor booth and somebody will come up to me and they'll say, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is exactly what we need. How come I've never heard of this before? And they're demonstrating the same frustration I had 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I feel bad. I feel like, man, if we had a better marketing campaign, you would know about this. And so we're going to be working on that. We're going to be improving that. You'll hear about FoxyCart more in the future. But in the early days, focusing on the product is super important. Because if we had this, this great marketing campaign and a product that was terrible, I mean, you guys are going to tell your friends, yeah, don't go use that. And actually, at the same time, you guys are going to tell your friends, hey, go check out FoxyCart. I use it for these 3 projects and it worked great. And that's really how we've grown. It's just great developer feedback, great referrals, all that. It's been really important. And then again, doing the work. It is tough work. So another thought I have as far as the counterbalance to just ship it is, or launching too early as far as going full time, is sometimes those same people that are saying ship it and be an entrepreneur and go do it, they're saying fear is the only thing holding you back. And well, it could be common sense. So it's important. Those look very similar often. So you could be sitting there thinking, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to jump and be a full-time entrepreneur. But what's your savings account look like? What's your actual revenue numbers looking like? Have you really thought this through? You should have money in the bank. You should be ready to go for this change. And as I mentioned with myself, my first goal was just so that my wife could stay at home and raise our kids. And by the time my daughter was born, my second, that's when I knew, okay, we have the money in the bank. And actually that first year, even when my wife quit her job, the revenues of FoxyCart were growing slowly and her revenues were here. And it was the way it went. By the end of the year, it was neutral. It was like basically we had covered her salary by the end of the year. It was an amazing accomplishment. And then looking forward a few years after that, when I was able to quit my job. And yeah, I mean, obviously we took a little bit of a financial hit, but it wasn't, we had planned things out. It was a smart decision. We'd planned things accordingly. And that's really important. I think, again, that message of rah, 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 it's so easy, just go be a full-time employee, you're going to be a success. And you haven't put in the time to build the product. You haven't put in the time to do the planning. You haven't thought through, like, well, how am I going to pay my mortgage? Those are important things. So I would really encourage people to make sure you think about where's that revenue coming from. Make sure you've planned things out. Make sure you're ready for that jump. Now, this is a slide I put in here. If you go to bit.ly/FoxyTools, we have a blog post on this. But I want to spend just a bit of time here and just focus on some of the tools we use as a company. Because I think that the tools that are available now are amazing. It's so helpful for small startup companies and small businesses because you don't need a gigantic team to get things done. You can actually use this technology to get a lot done with a very, very small team. And I want to talk about a few of these. How many of you used Slack before? Awesome. Wow, most of you. Slack is amazing. Basically, that's our entire office. So we go in there, and that's where we have all of our integrations. So we have alerts that come in there from all of our different systems. A lot of these systems are actually integrated with Slack as well, but it's basically a chat room. And you can have different channels for different projects you're working on. We have tools that let us know if somebody's on the team is sleeping, because we have, I think, 7 different time zones. So you know if somebody's sleeping, you know if somebody's eating, you know if, oh, this person's up and working. Being able to ping somebody and say, hey, what's going on with this project? Being able to see as issues come in from GitHub, or as whether it's Pivotal Track or Redmind, or we've used all kinds of different things. As things come up, you can always be right aware of knowing what's going on. So Slack is super helpful. We use Campaign Monitor for sending out emails to our customers. Segment.io is another one too. Are you guys familiar with Segment.io? Cool, very cool. Not many people are. This is a fantastic tool, because you can, as a developer, you can spend a lot of time integrating with a bunch of different systems. I mean, there's so many different analytics tools and feedback mechanisms that you can build. But it can be a little time consuming, because they all have their own little special way of adding this little JavaScript and populating this request to make sure that as some user event happens, that system gets updated. What's cool about Segment.io is you hook it into there, and it'll actually hook into all the other systems. It's kind of like, I'm drawing a blank on the system, that you basically code to one thing, and you can code to a whole bunch of other APIs. And the reason why I want to talk about these tools, spend some time on this slide, is that when I come to a conference like this, oftentimes, the talks are great and I learn a lot of great stuff, but it's often that one tool that I got. Oh, wow, that cool tool. I should bring that back to my boss and have him check it out. And usually that's what I remember years later from that conference. Oh, that was the conference I heard about that one tool. So that's why I want to spend some time talking about this. So again, Segment.io is very cool. It hooks in with Optimizely and Google Analytics and Kissmetrics and a whole bunch of other tools. You basically get it all out of the box if you just hook into Segment. And then you can just turn on all the other systems. Optimizely is really great for A/B testing. So as you're just getting off the ground and you're thinking about, okay, how do we tweak this? What features matter to people? How are we going to talk about our product in a way that really gets people to respond? You can have 2 versions of the website up, an A/B test, and actually figure out, oh, more people are responding to this than they are to this. They actually did actually just this past year, we won an Opti award, which is pretty cool. So FoxyCart got an award for team testing culture, which was really fun. But that's a great tool to check out if you want to do that kind of A/B testing. Vanilla we use for our forums, which has been really great for us. It allows for private messaging and certain things that are really great from a help desk perspective. For actual help desk, we use Help Scout, and that's also been really great because we can kind of take tickets and trade them off to different team members. So if somebody is working on it in Australia, and then we wake up and we can keep the conversation going, so we're really giving around the clock support, which is fantastic. And we also hook into their API. So when somebody emails us, it pulls up, and we have an endpoint on our system that pulls in and says, oh, here's the store that they have, here's the other stores that they have, so we kind of can build that relationship with the customer and have a context for what they're emailing about. We don't have to ask them, oh, what store is this for, and what are we dealing with? We can actually just quickly know right who they are and what they're working on. I already mentioned user voice, which is really helpful. For us, IDEV Affiliate is the affiliate program we use, which has also been nice, so that people are doing a lot of FoxyCart stores, and I mentioned word of mouth. That's already happening all the time. We have a way that we can reward people for that. So as they're telling their friends about FoxyCart, they can also get a kickback on that. Our documentation we put up on a wiki, so it's been really cool to see the community come back and actually help us improve that documentation. They're in there all the time, kind of making updates and changes, and we just make that open. Intercom is another really cool way to interact with your customers. So right as they come to your website, you can actually talk to them about, different features, or you can do polls, or you can have a chat right there, which is nice. And then Grasshopper is great too. In the beginning, especially when you're starting out, it can be difficult to be considered like a real company. You're like, man, I'm just me. I'm just, in my basement working on this thing. So Grasshopper allows you to get a phone number, which is really great, and an actual 800 number or 888 number. And that's something that we did early on, because we said, hey, if somebody's going to trust their business, they're going to be building their business on top of this e-commerce platform, it's got to work. And so we want to have a phone number, and that can hook in right to your cell phone, and it has decision trees and all that, depending on how you want to use it. So again, these are some of the tools that I would encourage you guys to check out, and there's probably more. Go ahead and tweet them at me if there's some that you like. I'd love to talk about those even more. But this is an important thing for somebody just starting out. There are great tools out there that don't require you to have a whole department or a whole team of people. You can actually just use a hosted solution and move forward really quickly. So how will you get there? What are you passionate about? That's the question I hope you've been asking yourself as you've been thinking through this. What are the things you're going to solve? What are the awesome companies you guys are going to start? That's what I'm excited about. That's what I want to know more about. And I've gone a little quick here. I've got a little open time for questions. And at first I was just going to end it there and have people come up here and we could talk ourselves, but it sounds like a lot of you guys are interested in this topic, so if it's all right, I'd love to have a little bit of Q&A just open. Probably the first question is, hey, what's up with the unicorn? Well, where this came from is we have a designer. She does all of our graphic art for our blog posts. Every time we do a new blog post, she'll actually do a hand-painted watercolor for us for our blog post. And so Brett wanted something cool for our 404 page. You know, every cool tech company needs to have a fun 404 page. So we put on the Lucky Charm Rainbow Pooping Unicorn on our 404 page, and everybody loved it. And then from there, the next thing we did was these stickers. We had a company that was using FoxyCart, and they said, hey, we want to give you some free stickers because we love the product you guys provide. So we did these little stickers, and we'd hand them out when we sponsored conferences and stuff, and people love the stickers. So of course, just recently, we were like, well, what do we do next for our next t-shirt run? So we had to do these. So that's the story of the unicorn. Actually, I have some t-shirts up here as well. I tweeted yesterday a few sizes. If you're interested, you can come talk to me afterwards. But I would, if you're willing, what are some questions? What do you guys have that you want to talk about? Oh, thank you. Thank you. We've got about 5 minutes.
Are there any questions? Here, hold on.
Back there. Oh, you got it. Nice. We got mics and everything.
Fancy stuff, nice. Yeah, so you talked a lot that you don't have a marketing team and that you just focus on the product and great people and stuff. It's actually something we're trying to do, but we're kind of failing really hard at marketing, even though we don't have a marketing team. Or I don't know how to say that. But how do you go to have your the initial people, like the first user base? How do you find them? Because we're trying, but I mean, I can try with my grandma, but she's not really tech savvy. So just how do you start getting the few hundred people?
That's a great question. The question basically is, how do you get started? How do you get your first customer base? And for us, I think in a way, we cheated. You know, we had Brett Florio already had a set of clients that he served, and they already were paying him monthly for his services. They didn't care what e-commerce solution they were using. So he just one by one started swapping them out to FoxyCart. So we kind of had a handful of people right off the bat that were using it because of his kind of built-in client base. And I forgot to tell this story, but one of the coolest things, we launched in May of 2007. And the reason we launched is there was one day somebody signed up and I was like, oh, hey, did you get a new client, Brett? Like, who's that guy? He's like, I don't know who that is. I thought that was your friend. I was like, I don't know who that is. Oh my gosh, we just launched the company. We better get an LLC. We're taking people's credit card numbers. We might get sued. Like, we gotta make this happen. So we started in May 2007 when somebody found us. And for us, it was actually, we were #1 in XHTML e-commerce. That was just a random SEO tag. So SEO is important. You know, if you can hit your target market, if they're gonna be searching online and they're gonna find you, that's one way. But also having that built-in community. So I would say, like, for example, let's say you're building an app for the lawyer community. Get into that community. Go to their meetups. Get involved with them. Actually start giving people free accounts and getting them, you know, getting that in front of a user as quickly as possible will give you that motivation. Got time maybe for one or two more?
So you talked about a lot about pushing forward. Did you ever have to have any major course corrections? And if so, what did you do to determine that?
Course corrections in terms of like pivots and things like that? Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I know a lot of companies that have done a lot of pivots. And what's funny is often with that same story, there's usually funding involved. So there's a lot of like the investors saying, rah, 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 we're doing this. Okay, that didn't get us the returns immediately as quickly as we wanted within the time frame we defined before we even knew anything about the concept. Now we're doing this, and now we're doing this, you know, and eventually they hit something and it works. I think for us, we're building this company for ourselves. You know, we knew what we wanted. We knew what the pain points were. And we didn't have other people saying, hey, you've got to make this a success in 6 months or 18 months or 2 years or 3 years. You know, that slide is like about 4 years working part-time. You know, we've been doing FoxyCart now for 7 years. So we've been, you know, I guess lucky enough to not have any major pivots. But that said, I think now we're refining the product and we're looking towards potentially not so much a pivot, but even refining. You know, the cart solution is just one part of it. Really, we want to be a platform as a service, an abstraction layer to the entire e-commerce process. And we want to integrate with existing e-commerce solutions. We were just talking last night with maybe doing a Magento integration. Integrating, we have a WooCommerce integration we're working on, so people can actually get all the features of live tax rates and shipping rates and coupons and discounts, all the stuff we do, PCI compliance because we're a hosted solution, and not have to take on all that other stuff. So there will be things in the future, but I think because we're going slow and steady, we can take that as it comes. But I think that's my time. Thank you guys so much. This has been awesome. Again, if you want stickers or a shirt, come up and see me.